Welcome to the WealthGenius Podcast. The WealthGenius Podcast. Strategies for multifamily real estate investing, mindset, community, success. The WealthGenius Podcast with your host, the godfather of real estate, Alfonso Cuadra, who has expansive experience in business and massive success as a real estate investor. The WealthGenius Podcast. Let's dive into today's episode.
Growwithnav. What's going on?
It's exciting. I'm in Ottawa for the second time, and it's been 48 hours, and I've learned so much.
Well, we just did your podcast, which was incredible. I don't know, somehow this all worked out where you can come and I do your podcast and be on our brand new podcast, the WealthGenius Podcast. So welcome, my friend. And I'm so fascinated with everything that you've done, real estate investor, YouTube entrepreneur, mortgages, so much going on. When did you come to Canada?
2020, March
of
11th.
March 11th. So 2 days before the whole world shut down.
Yeah.
So that is also fascinating. So I want to go right to the beginning. Before we go to the beginning, it's important to know where we're at right now. So kind of give us the scope of, what you've built and where we're at, and then bring us to the very, very beginning of how all of this started.
Absolutely. I always thought that it would be fascinating to have your own audience, because I thought that, whatever business you do, you will actually do very well. So right now, we have an audience of over 200,000 people.
Wow.
That we have built over the last 3.5 years, almost 4 years.
That's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that at this time, when we were starting, but I was actually building a pretty massive funnel. We started our videos where we talked about immigration, our journey of coming to Canada. Then COVID hit, and we had the struggle of finding a job, trying to figure out what we are going to do, whether we live or not, right? So in the beginning, we didn't know, what was happening, with COVID. So, that was where a lot of our audience, connected with us. And then I thought that, okay, we are making videos on immigration. It's not going to stay forever. So I need to build a business on top of it. So what's the one problem that people have, when they come, especially in COVID? And I was like, they need a job. And with my experience of over 10 years, being a market researcher, handling teams across, 18 countries, I thought that I can be a really good coach for people who are wanting multiple six-figure salaries. So that's where I started my first business. And this was in 2021, January. And that went on for till now. And I just shut it down, and I'm just, moving it over online. And that's where I thought, okay, immigration, job, what's the next thing that people need? It's a house to stay in. And I was like, what can I do? I can either be a realtor or I can be a mortgage agent. I love numbers. I want travel freedom. And I was like, let's do mortgages. So I didn't realize at that time when we started the YouTube channel that I was building a massive funnel. And now when I look back, it was just meant to be. So right now I am inherently an educator.
Wow.
But I wear a lot of other hats like mortgages, coach, helping people get multiple six figures. And now with me joining WealthGenius, I expanded my portfolio, and that's where, I really feel I can help people as a mortgage agent to expand their portfolios, not just in Canada, but in the US as well.
I love it. And so you have this massive following, 200,000 people. Put 200,000 people in a stadium. I don't think there is a stadium that holds 200,000 people. You went out and it's like, how can I serve the audience? Because you've cultivated an audience, and you said to yourself, how can I serve this audience? Well, everyone needs a house. Well, what's a product that I can offer? And it's like helping people transition into home ownership. So let's go back to the very beginning. How you started, kind of your upbringing, what has molded you, and ultimately what led you to come to Canada in the first place?
Oh, that's a pretty long but very normal story, honestly. So I was an engineer, so I did my engineering. And in India, when you are an engineer, that's a default profession. A lot of places, you become an engineer because you want to become an engineer. I just happened to be one because a lot of people were doing it, because I did not, have that maturity to understand that that's something that I'll be doing all my life, I didn't have that maturity. So I was an engineer. In my third year, I was like, shit, this is not something I can do forever. I sucked at it, right? I was bad at it. And I was like, I need to complete this because in India, if you are a dropout, you're a failure, right? And I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. So I was like, okay, let me just complete it. Let me just do MBA. So I started doing internship with PepsiCo at that time.
So you transitioned from engineer to business.
Yes. So
there's never a natural transition. Right?
No, it just, in my head, I was like, I'll probably be better at marketing because I was always good at speaking. I was always good at writing. I was like, probably I can try out marketing. That's fascinating. And in India, people who don't like engineering, they happen to become MBAs then, right? So it was again a natural progression. But I had an inclination towards when I used to go to grocery stores with my grandmother, with my mom, I was very fascinated. Why is it the Lay's package like sitting there and not here? And why is this at the checkout counter? And that was me as a kid thinking that why is this a certain way? And that's what PepsiCo gave me the exposure. But this was in 2008 2009, and that was the exposure that I got from that internship. And then I was like, yes, I'm going to do marketing, and that's where I got into like my business school, and I did marketing, and I worked alongside. I was almost thrown out of the college because I was working along, and they didn't like that I was doing full-time MBA and full-time. I was missing classes and stuff like that, but I loved it. And then I joined the largest market research company. So a lot of people say that, Navjot, you are a good researcher. I got coaching from the beginning, on how to become a good researcher, how to search, and now we have ChatGPT, but how to search the 15th page of Google to find something that other people don't know. I just, was trained like that. So for about 10 years, I did that across 18 markets. So I traveled a lot, during that, built a lot of character. And then I was always like, I do so much.
So you're in India.
Yeah.
You now have this, I would say at that point, your dream job.
Yeah.
And you are traveling to 18 countries, doing what you love. How did that feel?
It was amazing till about 2014, and this was like not even 10 years ago, right? I was never on an airplane.
Wow.
So it was very fascinating to me that, I was going to Dubai, and I was like, yes, I'm going on an airplane. And I was scared, right? Because I was
on a business trip.
On a business trip.
You're
right?
important.
I'm doing it alone, right? Like I was fascinated, by that. And I always thought that it'd be so cool to have a job where I travel all the time. And when I got that job in 2017, I think, 2016 or 2017, I was like, shit, this is my dream job. And only to realize later that I was in Australia on one day, and then the next 3 days in Australia, then going to Vietnam, and then going to London, and then, it was tiring, right? So there was 1 year where I loved it because I was traveling so much and talking to so many people.
And it was new.
And it was new.
Yeah.
But then the novelty of it, with any worldly thing, I think, the novelty just wears out. Like you buy a very expensive car, and in a few days, you're like, yeah, it's just a car, right? So that's what happened with me. And which is where I realized that I've worked so hard for someone. I should do something of my own and work as hard or more for myself. Which is where we started our first business, which failed miserably. But yeah, which is where my entrepreneurial journey started.
Yeah. And so what was the decision to come to Canada?
Look, Alfonso, what happens in India, and I'm not going to generalize it, but what I realized is that I was in Delhi. And Delhi, the normal AQI level is over 300.
Wow.
Which you have 5 or 10 here, right?
Wow.
So I was like, I think the way of life is that you're breathing not so clean air. And that's not okay. That's like smoking a pack of cigarette every single day, and I don't smoke, right? So I was like, I don't want that life. I don't want that life if you have kids. I don't want that life for my kids. Plus the political scenario and everything taken together, I could have changed my state. Delhi is polluted, but there are other places in India which are not. But I was like, if I'm changing that, let me make a bigger change. Let me go towards, I always thought that US is the place where there are opportunities, and obviously US is not that open when it comes to immigration, and Canada is. And I was like, I want to be as close as possible to opportunity. Which is where we shut down our business, and thank God we did that, because we were making mobile apps or shopping malls, and we shut down that business in January of 2020, and then shopping mall shut down in March.
Wow.
So if we had not come to Canada and we were doing what we were doing, we would have been down to zero. At that time, forcefully, right? That better life and that aspiration of being close to where the opportunity is what got us to Canada.
So you said that your first business was the immigration. You were helping people immigrate into Canada. So when someone is in India right now, if someone is in India, like how hard is it for them is there like a path of resistance coming to Canada? Is it relatively easy? Like, what's that process like?
It is relatively easy. It used to be a lot easier because there's a point system, and what we did was, and this is what, where serving comes, right? Now, there are a lot of immigration agents who were, like charging a lot of money and doing nothing. And when we did our process, we realized that it's so easy. You just need everything together. You did
it all on your own.
Yes, so we did all on our own because our friend said that it's not that hard. When we did everything on our own, we realized that the biggest problem is the information is just everywhere, and there's no one source, one source of truth. And that's what we created with ebooks that I wrote. It was completely free, 4 ebooks. I put it on my website, not knowing what they'll do, not knowing how I'll get to those people. And I was like, okay, how do I distribute these ebooks, because these are one source of truth? And that's where I started posting on different Facebook groups, on immigration, right? And I was like, it's so easy, let me just post it there. And then they just kicked me out of the groups. And because there was some random guy.
Well, someone's trying to sell their own thing. Or whatever,
and there was no selling in that, right? Because it was just completely free. But people could not fathom, how can this person post something for free? Or is it legit? And that's where I thought that, I need my own vehicle for distribution, which is where I started, we started the YouTube channel. And then the entire book, each chapter became the first 52 videos on the channel.
So you went from 0 to 100,000 subscribers
just by making those about 75 videos on just the process of immigration and then our journey to Canada.
What's your most viewed video?
I think it was, we left our multiple 6-figure jobs to immigrate to Canada. That was
how many views?
I think 700,000.
700,000. For me, YouTube was a slow start.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, and I started maybe in 2008. At the very beginning, you're just pretty much talking to yourself, right? I remember one of my videos got to like 100,000 views, and it was almost like overnight, right? All of a sudden, I started to get all these emails, and I'm like, what's this? All these email comments, right? And so YouTube pushes it on your email, and you get all these comments coming, like, what is happening? And then I look, the first time I looked, I'm like, 40,000 views. What's happening? And I don't know, something clicked at that point for that particular video for whatever particular reason. And so what was that moment for you? Like, when was it like you were like, oh wow, like this is really taking off?
I'll tell you what, Alfonso. So I always used to be very well prepared when I was doing a video. I would write a script, and it was like a very scripted, like I would actually write a script, right? And then we would shoot that video, then we'll edit that video. So it was a long process, and we did about 50-60 videos. Our first video got 10 views, and 8 of those were from our own mobiles, right? So we were just, oh, we got one more view. Oh, you know what? Simran watched it from another view. So, we were just, having fun with it, right? So the first video was actually our 53rd video that actually went viral, right?
Wow.
And that was this video where I first built a script. We were about to shoot it, and we were about to go to where we shoot, and then I told her that I'm not happy with the script. We went back, and I wrote a new script, and then we went out, and this was this video that went viral. So we can have all the formulas in the world, we can have all the preparation in the world, but you can't time which video goes viral, and which is where you said that it was just overnight, but you were creating content since 2008. For us, it was 52 videos. And the 53rd video clicked. So the important thing that I realized at that moment was you need to keep doing. You need consistency. I think a lot of YouTubers fail because they're not consistent, And to your point, when you said that 200,000 people in one room, that's what I said to Simran when she said, oh, people get hundreds and thousands of views. Our first video got 100 views in the first week. And I was like, just imagine a room full of 100 people. If you would call that a success, then you should call this a success. Because 100 people watched us. We are nobody at that point.
And so, now you've come to Canada March 11th, before the whole world shuts down, right? At that point, there's no masks or anything, but the news is going crazy. And, I'm sure you're like, okay, what am I going to do? Everything's shut down. You can't go look for a job. You didn't have a job here waiting for you, right?
I had. but I lost it in 2 days of this announcement.
Wow.
So I lost the interview as well, right? So it was not that I lost the job, I lost the opportunity to present myself in a company that I had worked for 9 years.
Yeah. Like, you're sitting there, the world is shut down, it's you and your wife, you're here in a new country, you left everything behind, you had this job, but you don't even have the opportunity anymore, no more interviews, the world is shut down. And so what's that conversation? Like what are you guys saying to each other? Like, what's going on, right?
We were clueless. We were living in a basement. And the scariest bit was, and I think even in 10 years, I'll remember that because of COVID and there was so much activity in the hospital. So we were living very close to the hospital, like just 2 blocks away. And there were these ambulances that went past, like every 1 minute, every 2 minutes, the whole night. And the only thing that we were hearing were ambulances. And if you switch on the TV, it was all doom and gloom. And when we talk back home, it's all doom and gloom. And we were like, there are only 2 paths here. Either we come out of this or we all die.
That's true.
That's the only. And I still remember, honestly, Alfonso, there was no thought of future in that point, that we are just living by the day. We have to do groceries. The grocery store was 2 kilometers away, and we don't walk a lot, right? Like in India, we had cars and everything, good life and everything, and we were like, we have to walk, and we were like, let's walk, 2 kilometers, because there were no public transport. So we walked to Walmart and we picked up all the grocery, and then we realized that we have to walk with all the grocery back because there's no public transport, and we were scared of going into Uber. So we did walk, and our hands were like this, and we were like we didn't come here for this. There's always that thought, right? I would be lying if I say that, no, I was all positive. No, I was not, right? And the next time we actually took suitcases with us to Walmart so that, we can put all the stuff in the suitcase and then get it back, right? But I think the one thing that subconsciously we always knew, because we had failed businesses, we were in our, early 30s when we came here. We had some failures, is that if we come out of this, we have to keep doing what we are doing, because when we come out of this, it would be the survival of the fittest. And that's where we started, and we were already creating content that we flipped into making more vlogs.
So before you came to Canada, you were already creating content?
Yes, about 6 months before.
Okay.
Because we were making,
did anything go viral yet at that point?
No. Okay. It was like a few videos touching 2,000. But at that point, when everyone was at home and the only media that you could watch is YouTube or Netflix, or you are not going out, you're not hanging out with people, and that's where we started creating content on our struggle of not getting a job, what we are doing, how we are taking the grocery, we are taking the suitcase, all that. We just started documenting our life, because I think a lot of times we find motivation in other people's lives, but there was motivation in our lives, and we thought, okay, let's just
you're in the trenches. You're in the trenches.
We were like, let's just shoot this, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, I still feel that we were in a very privileged spot, because we had money, because we had earned, some money in our previous business and, in our previous life. But when I saw, and that was a flip in my head where I thought that my problems are really big. I was almost, I don't know what we are going to do. We don't have a job, and I was cribbing. And at that point, I went to Walmart, and there was a cashier, and I asked her, how you're doing. She started crying. I didn't know how to respond to that, right? I was like, are you okay? And she was like, I live in a 1-bedroom. I have 2 kids. And because of my job, because I can't leave my job, I literally don't know what to do, because if I go home, I can actually make my kids sick or worse. And that's when I realized that my problems are not big enough. My problem is a problem. But look at that, right? That's a problem. That's a real problem. She's actually fearing for her kid's life, which is where I realized that I'm good. I have a camera. I have okay money to, help me sustain for the next, 4-5 months till we get out of this. And I just told Simran that we just need to keep doing what we are doing, just document. And that's what kept us going.
And so this video goes viral. Sometimes people can be a one-hit wonder, right? You have multiple videos going viral now, or do you find the formula? Like, how does that work?
So it was all about providing value. I think the key to success on YouTube is to provide consistent value, and then one video gets viral, then you get known for the previous videos. My first video got 100 views in the first 1 week, but eventually I think right now it's 100,000 plus views on that video, right? So, and it just was built out of one video, then people saw the channel and they were like, oh wow, there's a lot of value in this channel, right? I think it was not like one video went viral and then the others went viral as well. There were ups and downs, and we still have ups and downs, and we pivot, but it's just about being consistent. We showed up.
People have no idea that it does require a lot from someone to hit the subscribe button, right? For them to actually hit the subscribe, hit the like, hit the bell to be notified the next time you're doing a video. Those are 3 steps that the majority of people are not going to do, right? Unless they're inspired. I want to know more from this person or whatnot, you know? By the way, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell to be notified the next time we're doing a video. But ultimately, what have you found? You know, now 200,000 subscribers. What are some of the strategies to get those people to subscribe, hit the like, put a comment?
I think it's about understanding your audience and creating that niche within that audience, because a lot of times we try to focus on too many people. Like, you know, I only focus to date in my business on new immigrants. You know, I only focus on, if I'm talking about mortgages, I only focus on first-time home buyers, that even, you know, because I look like them, South Asian first-time home buyers, right? So I think a lot of times we miss that we have an audience. And if we speak directly to that audience that speaks, you know, like we speak their language, it'll hit them and they'll find value in it. Now, there are 2 kinds of content that gets viral. One is funny, you know, adding entertainment, you know, that's why Netflix, you know, does so well. Movies do so well. Comedy, you know, like good, you know, comedians do so well. Or it's education. You know, something, how can you add, you know, like more dollars to their bank accounts, or how can you save some dollars, you know, how can you change that mindset, you know? So if you have that niche, I think that's where a lot of people miss when they start a YouTube channel. We have to have that niche. If it's real estate, talk about real estate. If it's investing, talk about investing. If it's about immigration, talk about immigration. And I think that's the formula. You know, you have to talk directly to that audience, and then you don't have to say subscribe to my channel. They will, because they know, because there's a FOMO. You know, there's this.
They don't want to miss out on the next one.
They don't want to miss out. You know, they don't want to miss. Oh, this guy actually saw this. Oh, I actually have to see this, so that I want to know what this guy learned from this, right? So community just spreads. Word of mouth is still the most powerful marketing tool in my book. And it spreads.
I love that philosophy. I know that, you know, let's say 20, 30 years ago, the way you controlled people was through media, right? Now, anybody can build their audience, and I think that is the world is transitioning to where people have more power, right? I get to control what I consume, right? And then now everyone has the ability to create a channel. And so I've always thought that anybody doing a business needs to cultivate an audience, right? And so my question to you is, how important, and I'm going to talk about real estate, you know, how important is it to cultivate an audience?
I think that's critical. You know, I think there is so much opportunity that, like you said, you know, you can actually start a YouTube channel tomorrow and you don't have to ask for government permission. It's just yours, right? You need to decide that you need to shoot a video and put it out. Our first video, we still remember, it was not an iPhone. It was a normal Poco phone, Xiaomi Chinese phone. We shot the first 52 videos on that Chinese phone. We had like lav mics which were connected to the phone. Sometimes we used to forget, you know, that it's working or not, and we had to reshoot. So our equipment was pretty crappy, and we still reached 100,000 subscribers just by that very cheap phone and a very cheap audio. I think a lot of times we forget that, like when you talk about real estate, right? Let me go back to 2020, December 24th. It was one day before Christmas, and I could not sleep the entire night. And the reason was that immigration was going down. My channel was built on immigration, and I was like, shit, if immigration goes down, I don't have whatever I'm getting. I got the first big check from YouTube, which was $4,000 on the YouTube channel. I was like, wow, that's good money, you know. That's not bad for a YouTube channel, right? So, and I was like,
if you did that once a month, you know, you could pay your bills, you can live off
absolutely.
YouTube.
And you know, at that time, our entire, you know, like expenses were, you know, about 4,000, 5,000, right? So I was like, it's paying for all my expenses, and that's amazing. But I did not sleep that night because I felt that I have too much control. I've given too much control of my business to the audience to the government not doing immigration the way it was. I've just given up too much control, and that's where the switch flipped from being a content creator to wanting to use content as a driver for business. Which is where between 25th to 1st, a lot of people enjoyed that time because that's the time where you wind down. I just ramped up, and I was like, I need to build a business on top of this. And I always had that thought that I need to start a course on how to get 6-figure salaries. And in those 7 days, I was procrastinating for the last 6 months. I had everything in my mind. In those 7 days, I put it all on, like a presentation. And I started, the course. In February, we launched. We still have 3,400 people who are on the wait list. So if I launch a program, it'll just sell.
Wow.
And that's the power of audience, right? As long as you're providing value, as long as you have a business that's running on top of YouTube, you should not be looking at YouTube as the source of the sole, source of business. If you are that, then you have to step up. You just can't, you have to step up your game on YouTube then. But as a realtor, as a real estate investor, all you need is 100 people to find some value and one person to come to you and buy your course or buy a house from you.
Wow.
And that's a 10,000 plus 5-figure paycheck.
Yeah.
And that's how powerful it is. So we don't need 100,000, 200,000 subscribers. We don't need that. We only need 100 to watch and one to buy from you. And that's a very fair ratio.
I love that. You've built a massive audience that now you've cultivated, and now you're not pigeonholed to a very specific product or niche. Your audience is going to follow you anywhere, and that's powerful. And anybody building a business needs to take YouTube seriously. And what I don't want anybody to forget is it's not about the views. People get so hung up on the views. It's about who is listening. If you have one person listening and that person is a buyer of whatever it is that you're selling, you've made money because of YouTube, not from YouTube directly.
Yes.
Right? So I love that. For the people that are watching, what are 3 tips that you can give them to get started with your YouTube channel? Like, if they don't have a YouTube channel or they have a YouTube channel, what are 3 tips that you can offer them?
I think the first one is to get rid of any insecurities that you have about yourself. So you need to speak to yourself, and whatever you think. For example, I always felt that, in my culture, people have beard, they have big beards, and I don't have that beard. So in my culture, I was like, I don't look good, and that's why I will not create content. But I'm not, some superstar. I'm here to deliver value. And I think that's where, you need to switch off your insecurities, and you need to concentrate on your skill. And that skill would get you into more rooms. And that skill would get you more views. That skill would get you people, for people to hit the subscribe button, and not how you look.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times we just, pay a lot of attention to physical appearance. So that's number one.
Yeah.
Shed the insecurities that you have. Talk to a therapist. Do whatever you have to. do whatever
Talk
you
to
have.
a therapist.
Do whatever you have to get rid of that. And talk to your family. Talk to your wife. So I think that's very important. The second one is, I would say, being consistent. The second one is having value. You need to create that one content or that one piece of course or something that gives a lot more than what you're taking away from the audience. You're taking away
their time,
their attention. Taking away time and attention. And in a world like today where there's so many YouTube channels, so much information out there, it's very hard to get that attention. So you need to create something of value that people will listen to you. You just can't, create 10 videos and say people didn't listen to me, and that's why I'll not do it, right? So you need to have enough value. And if it's not working, that means that you need to create more value because it's already out there. So what are you bringing, your personality, your experience, what are you bringing different to this? So the value proposition has to be very clear. And the third thing, and that's my number one, tip would be to have consistency. Like, irrespective of whether it takes 2 months, 7 months, 10 months, there are people who become overnight successes. Literally, they create their first video and become successful, but that's an anomaly.
Yeah.
You have to work your ass off. You have to, like, we made the first, I think, 200 videos every Wednesday and every Saturday. It has to go out. It doesn't matter what's going on in our lives. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We had short videos at 2 a.m. in the morning, and it had to go out in the morning, like at 7. So I was shooting a video till 2 a.m. and then I was, editing those videos, because in the beginning I was editing my own videos. And I think it's being consistent. Doing it, the value proposition should be very clear, and you should shed off all your insecurities, and that would be, the top 3 tips.
Woo! And ultimately, you're going to look back on this and you're going to say, oh my God, I can't believe I only had 200,000 views. Huh. So, Growwithnav, last question, okay? What is the quote that inspired you to do all of this?
So it's by Gary Vaynerchuk, and he says, give more than you take. That quote perfectly fits into what I'm doing right now. So yeah, it's just about giving 10x of what you're taking away.
And I could tell, Nav, thank you for coming here and inspiring me today. And I know that our viewers are going to get a lot from this, and let's keep on growing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, my man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Woo! Grow with Nav. Let's go.
Thanks for listening to the Wealth Genius Podcast. If you have a question or comment about something you heard today, reach out to the Godfather via social media or email him anytime. All that information is in the show notes. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Wealth Genius Podcast. The Wealth Genius Podcast. Until next time, see you at the top.